Immortality. Does the concept exist? Hey Smith. Yeah. Does the concept of immortality exist? Realistically? No. No, it does not. Like, but Randy Joe, machines, they can live forever. They can live forever and blah blah blah. Like, let me put to you like this. You see this? You see how it's rusting? You see, if it doesn't have any proper care and, doesn't have any proper anything to it, it'll rust into the ground. Alright? It'll basically become so rusted where it would fall apart and no longer exist in the state that it currently is. The same can be said about this. The same can be said about that. One day, this thing will no longer exist. One day, this will no longer exist. And this goes the same for any type of machine that exists in general. You see, machines cannot live forever. Machines are not immortal, as people like to believe. They're as immortal as a human being, and the idea is simple. For as long as they're, something that keep them alive, then they are as immortal, for as long as there is something keeping them from falling apart and no longer existing. And even then, immortal, immortality is still a feeble hope. Let's say you're an immortal being for as long as you have air, like oxygen to breathe, water, and food to eat, as well as blood in your veins. Well, then you're as immortal, you're immortal until you run out of oxygen, water, and food. Let's say you don't need water, let's say you don't need food, and let's say you don't need oxygen to be immortal. Then you're as immortal for as long as your body is intact. Still exist in one piece. And then, of course, let's say you're immortal even if you lose half your brain. Or your head gets blown off, but you're still alive. Your head gets dumped into a bucket of acid, but you're still alive. Then that's more or less immortal with a capital K. No, immortal with a capital I, excuse me. But the problem is with that is that you're as immortal as the universe is. And the universe is not immortal. Fireworks. The, the 4th of July and more like July and January and December is basically the months where it sounds like I'm in a war zone. But anyway, immortality. Immortality. Now, of course, the thing is it possible to achieve immortality as a biological being? And here's the fun bit. There is already a species out there that is nicknamed the immortal jellyfish. And by technical definition, is technically immortal. Because, after it reaches a certain point in its life, or after it's damaged or whatnot, it reverts back into its larval stage. And then basically gets reborn. But it's as immortal as you can theoretically get for an organism, beyond being a tree. At the end of the day, can a human being be immortal? Well, realistically speaking, no. Because we are too biologically complex. Because have you noticed that the organisms that lives longer than the rest is usually plants, which can theoretically live, like some tree species can live to be hundreds, if not hundreds, then thousands of years old. Then you got some, uh, like, then you also got some sponges, which can also live to pretty much hundreds of years. Starfish, also hundreds of years, give or take. Many organisms can live to be about 300 years old in the oceans alone. Well, many organisms you know, that is not in the oceans, but on land, can theoretically live to be about 100, maybe 200 years old. But many of them that can live that long are extremely simple, things. Like very simple plants, very simple animals, and very simple organisms altogether that can theoretically live that long. Because they don't really have to extend much energy to live that long. They don't have high metabolisms, which, the consequence of having a high metabolism is also having, a metabolism that can quickly break down after a while. You know, slow metabolisms can, you know, like the reason why many reptiles live longer is because they have slow metabolisms. But of course, however, I'm only going off of information that I currently know. And if memory serves correctly, if you don't keep learning the same information over and over and over in your brain, basically hammer it home, you lose that valuable bit of information because it's pointless to keep it. It just takes up space. But anyway, but that still ties into immortality though. If you were immortal, memories would be overwritten, would be like you would make new memories on top of old memories. And like a computer, you know, that can lead to madness, put it simply. Madness in a human, pretty much broken code and such for a computer. Yeah. So, yeah. In other words, being immortal is a very bad thing depending on who you ask. Hmm. But is it possible for a human to be immortal? Yes, it is. But it will be a very painful existence for any human being that does become immortal. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk.